Today, I would like to talk about a trader that lent money to the English, the Dutch, the Portuguese, and the Mughals all at the same time. He was someone who single handedly dominated the commercial and urban history of 17th century Surat. Now, Surat in the 17th century was one of the major commercial ports of the world. This man, operating from Surat in India, controlled an empire spanning the entire subcontinent and had business interests in Persia, Greece, and Southeast Asia. He was referred to as the richest merchant in the world at the time by English factory records. In one of the letters from the English factory at Surat to their London head office, he was referred to as the merchant prince and the richest man in India and the world at the time. He was Mr. Virji Vora, a Jain merchant prince, financier, trader, and banker to the ruling elite of his time. Virji Vora was the head of a Jain sect, and the Mahajans, those who aspired to take Diksha in order to become a Jain monk. A Diksha or a Jain monk is a kind of a renunciation of the worldly pleasures by the Jain community, and these monks travel around wearing only white clothes and they give up everything that is worldly and try and attain nirvana. Those who aspire to take Diksha and become a Jain monk had to seek Virji Vora's permission, and without it, they were not allowed to take Diksha. Virji constantly checked the knowledge of Agams or Jain scriptures, as they are called, of those who were seeking to take Diksha. And if he, as well as the order, was satisfied with the person, then they would. In 1669, the Qazi of Surat, in persuasion of the policy of religious conversion, converted a few banyas into Islam. Certain prominent traders and merchants from Surat, like Bhimji Parekh and Virji Vora, as a mark of protest, declared a strike against this action. This was almost like a non-violent, non-cooperation movement 200 years before Gandhiji launched it. This was in the 17th century. This lasted for a few weeks. It forced Aurangzeb, the Mughal emperor, into submission, and about 8,000 merchants, led by their Mahajans or Mercantile Association, of which Virji Vora was the leader, migrated to the nearby Bharuch port as a mark of protest. Now, business activities of Virji Vora ranged from a wholesale trade of money, credit, and banking. He established a monopoly on the import of certain products in Surat and dealing with a wide range of products, including spices, precious metals, coral, ivory, lead, and opium. He was a major loan provider and client of the British East India Company and the Dutch East India Company. The business house of Virji Vora had branches in several places in India and also a few port cities of the Persian Gulf, the Red Sea, and Southeast Asia. Virji had agents in the major commercial centers of India, including Goa, where his agents bought spices, used Malabar frigates for coastal trade, in Bihar, in Golconda in the Deccan Plateau, where his agents bought spices, especially pepper and cardamom. Fun fact, Golconda is also the place where the Kohinoor diamond was found, and it was the only mine in the world at that time. So diamonds were found only in Golconda throughout the world. Burhanpur, a major transportation and textile center on the Agra Surat road, also had Virji's agents. Calicut in Malabar down south, which was a major trade center for various spices, had Virji's agents established there. And Agra, the imperial capital and center of trade for indigo. All these places had one or more of Virji's agents, and their sole job was to buy up the entire supply of any commodity that came into the market. In Gujarat as well, his agents were scattered in different cities, including Ahmedabad, Baroda, and Bharuch. Now, Virji competed with the British East India Company at times, but he was also their biggest creditor and client in Surat. The two often sent gifts and letters to each other. Company records have shown a list of interactions between Virji and the company, like starting in 1635, where Virji gave a few pieces, 9 pieces of white cloth to the company. And in 1654, Virji asked the director of the company to judge their disputes with their employees in India. The English often complained about the high interest rates which Virji charged, which was around 1 to 1.5% a month. This was, now let me remind you, this was in the 17th century, and such exorbitant interest rates were unheard of. So few examples of the credits that he forwarded to the British were: in 1619, a record dated of 25th August 1619 states that Virji lent 25,000 Mahamudis to the English. In 1635, he lent 20,000 to the English. In 1636, he lent 30,000 to the English. In 1636, again he lent 2 lakhs to the English. In 1647, he financed the East India Company's voyage to Pegu in Burma by providing 10,000 pagodas, which is approximately 6,000 euros at the time, and the interest he charged was 1.17% per month. This agreement was reached in Golconda. In 1630, he lent 5,000 rupees to the English. In 1669, the English borrowed 4 lakh from a group of creditors, of which Virji was the most important one. In 1642, a letter dated of 27 January mentions him as the principal creditor of the East India Company and mentions that he has offered a loan of 1 lakh in necessitous and calamitous times. In 1650, he proposed rupees 1 lakh to Mary, the president of the English factory at Surat. In 1668, Virji Vora and Haji Zahid, another merchant from Surat, stored thousands of mounds of vermilion and quicksilver, which was sufficient to supply the whole country for many years. Now, this was a business strategy that Virji followed very meticulously. What he used to do was he used to corner the market in one commodity and buy the entire stock available in the country. For example, let me tell you a story of 1625. Virji bought the entire pepper stock bought by the Dutch to Surat. The English factory at Surat decided to purchase pepper worth 10,000 euros from Virji at the rate of 16 Mahamudis per mound. Virji, who owned the entire pepper stock in the city, demanded 16.25 per mound and also asked them to sell to him 25 chests of coral. Now, to give you a quick update, coral was in great demand from Indians at that point. Local Indians loved coral and they loved decorating themselves up with coral for whatever reason. So he demanded that the English sell to him 25 chests of coral that they had bought at a much lower price than they had actually bought it for. Now, when the merchant from South India arrived at Surat with fresh stocks of pepper, Virji bought all of it. He did not let anybody or any other trader get even a single kilo of pepper from these South Indian traders. The English, distraught, then sent an agent to the Deccan to buy some pepper. But Virji, the smarty pants that he was, he asked his agents in the Deccan also to buy the pepper stock at a price which was slightly higher than the English were prepared to give there. Ultimately, the English had to give in and were forced to purchase pepper from Virji at the rates that he wanted them to buy at. Now, another example, in 1648, he bought cloves from the Dutch at a cheaper rate than the English thanks to his enormous liquid capital. He was a creditor to the Mughal emperor, to the English, to the Dutch, everyone. So there was obviously no shortage of money. He purchased the clothes at 45 rupees per month and sold them at 62 to 65 rupees per month. This is how Virji actually earned a huge margin on his trades, because he cornered the market and then he dictated his conditions and the prices. He and his close associate, one Mr. Shantidas Zaveri from Ahmedabad, were also the main creditors to the Dutch East India Company. Virji also bought opium and cotton from local merchants and exchanged them for pepper in South India or in the Spice Islands. So his strategy involved syndicates that bought the entire cargoes of a particular commodity valued from 5 to 10 lakh rupees. An English factory record dated 18th of July 1643 mentions him as the sole monopolist of all European commodities. It further states that the deals between the Europeans and the smaller local merchants were restrained by him, and the time and price of the deals were decided at his will and his own disposal. Now imagine somebody trying to go up against the leading merchant of his time. So if you're a trader in Surat in the 17th century and you understand that Virji has entered a particular commodity in this market cycle, then you will make sure you stay away from that commodity and you will make sure that you do not piss off Virji Vora. So obviously none of the smaller traders were ready to deal with the English. Eventually, after a few years in the late 1660s, Virji Vora suffered a string of major defeats. One of the largest ones came when the Maratha chief Chhatrapati Shivaji raided Surat in 1664. 7th January 1664 to be precise. They demolished his residence and warehouses and looted a large sum of money, along with pearls, rubies, emeralds, and diamonds. A Dutch witness states that Shivaji took 6 barrels of gold, money, pearls, gems, and other precious items from Virji. The French traveller Jean de Thévenard, who visited Surat in the 1660s and developed a friendship with Virji, also wrote about the huge monetary loss inflicted in the course of the raid by Shivaji. Some people estimate that this loot was valued at approximately 50,000 euros at that time. But even after the Marathi raid, Virji was not completely ruined as his assets were distributed among several centers outside Surat, namely Burhanpur, Bhuj, Ahmedabad, Rajkot, and the likes. Virji was an incredible businessman with astute sense of monopolist practices and trade. He was someone who lent money to the Mughal emperors, to the Dutch East India Company, to the English East India Company, and made sure he took advantage of his liquid positions throughout the 17th century, and he dominated Surat trade. In this week's edition of Business Banao and Forgotten Entrepreneurs, we try to remember Virji Vora. See you next time.